where I had to speak up a little bit because of the
Right.
Okay.
So you ready?
You're ready.
Okay. I want to thank you all for those that are viewing and those of you who have come out to support us. I've had some great conversations with my colleagues this morning at our WIT meeting about what we're going to be doing this afternoon. I think it's really important that members of Congress know about what's happening in the Virgin Islands and in Puerto Rico. And I'm so glad this morning to be joined by the presidents of the American Federations of Teachers for the local St. Thomas as well as St. Croix chapters. This is a really important and thank you all for taking time to come up to Washington from the fight, from the struggle that you're all in right now to support not just our teachers but our students in the Virgin Islands. This afternoon, the Democratic members of the Committee on Education and the Workforce and other congressional Democrats, as well as all of our friends, those who are concerned about what's happening in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, will be coming to a forum to examine whether recovery efforts of the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico are meeting the needs of local students, parents, and educators. Education plays a great role in the life of everyone throughout their lifespan. Receiving a quality education is very necessary to achieve success and a happy life. A noteworthy education is constructive in nature, wherein it constructs from us, but what cannot be taken from you is what's in your mind. And education and the teachers who educate us are the ones that put that strength, that power within young people. And we have to, members of Congress, Americans, have to facilitate that and make sure that that continues. While a month of September marks the one-year anniversary of Hurricanes Irma and Maria making landfall in the Virgin Islands as Category 5 storms, the aftermath of the storm is still an everyday reality. Estimates of the damage is at over $10 billion. Earlier this month, I visited local schools as they opened for the new school year, and the conditions are at best troubling. The Virgin Islands Board of Education reported a drop of nearly 39%. Almost 40% of students are no longer enrolled in schools, and Puerto Rico's Department of Education closed 265 schools last summer in the aftermath of the hurricane. Only 19 of the 33 public schools throughout the territory reopened on time, and many of those that did open are in no shape for learning. School facilities have limited air conditioning, faulty or broken electrical and water systems, lack of school supplies and classroom resources for students who resorted to standing or sitting on crates, floors, and desks because there are not sufficient chairs. I noted libraries with little or no books, teachers bringing in beach chairs, folding tables to be able to try and facilitate learning for their students. I had young people coming up to me over the weekends saying that they desperately wanted to go back to school, that they wanted to be in school, but there was no school open for them. This is a fault of all of us. All of us bear a responsibility in this. And it's my job here in Washington to let my colleagues know that they bear the greatest fault. Because for years, they have taken out funding for students in the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. And they need to do what's right to make sure. But I think what's more important is for you to hear from those who represent the teachers. And at this time, I'd ask Ms. Soto Thomas, Rosa Soto Thomas, who's the president of the AFT Local St. Croix, and then Ms. Callwood, Carol Callwood, who is president of the AFT Local St. Thomas, to speak.
Good morning. I want to thank the delegate for inviting myself here this morning to give testimony and to actually summarize exactly what happened in the U.S. Virgin Islands. I also want to thank the many teachers, my brothers and sisters in the Virgin Islands, for hanging with the Department of Education through these very challenging times. We have a lot of challenges in our classrooms. Teachers are operating out of classrooms that are leaking badly. It's pretty much raining in some classrooms. We're moving waste baskets around to catch the water. We have water running into the electrical outlets. Like the delegate said, I'm going to echo again, there's not enough furniture in our classrooms. There's not enough supplies. Textbooks are lacking. Internet connectivity is a major problem, and it's a major tool in our toolkit, in teachers' toolkit. So that needs to be addressed as soon as possible. So I'm glad for the opportunity for the Congress to hear all the many concerns, because when teachers entered those buildings this year, they were ready to get started. And there were so many delays. School did not open on time. We still have some schools that are out. The modulars aren't moving as quickly in terms of construction and finishing. There's some problems there with the modular, especially one school that was condemned in the district of St. Croix, the Arthur Richards Junior High School, is still without a home. They're sharing a building with Woodson School, which is another junior high school. All right, so we thought that this year things would be better, but apparently we walked right into the same situation. Last year, following the storms, we had 5 buildings that were open. And all the 13 schools in the district of St. Croix operated out of the 5 buildings via split sessions. The students in the Virgin Islands received 4 hours of instruction. That's disgusting. And it continues whereby, you know, there are interruptions because a fire broke out at one of the high schools. Again, teachers were sent home, students were sent home. So instruction is still being impacted via the storm. The infrastructure got hit hard, badly, and we're hoping that we get the help that we need in the Virgin Islands, and it needs to happen at a faster rate. You know, the rate is a major problem. You know, so I want to thank the teachers, the support staff, the paraprofessionals in the Virgin Islands that continue to clean the classrooms, because those classrooms that were shuttered were not clean. And they reopened this year because of Stafford Act rules in terms of, you know, the amount it costs to rebuild and all of that stuff, damages that buildings incurred. So I'm reaching out to the Congress. I'm glad that our delegate is here, giving us this opportunity to let the community know what's going on. I'm asking for parents also to reach out and support the unions and also the schools, because our working environment are their children's learning environment. And we need to begin to correct all the deficiencies that we have. Members are getting sick. There's mold in the classrooms. As I stand here, we're filing OSHA reports. We're having the members fill out their first injury report so they can be protected under workman's comp, because they're being forced to go into these classrooms. That's why last week there was a lot of demonstration in the district of St. Croix, because our members are being asked to go into the classrooms and they're not ready. The schools are not ready. And I'm just hoping that we get this corrected, okay? Thank you so much, Delegate Plasko.
Good morning, and thank you so much for this opportunity. One of the things, like President Silva Thomas stated, that our schools are being open and they weren't ready. The difference is in St. Thomas, last year, 5 schools were impacted. They opened 8 other schools. In St. Croix, they only opened 5 schools. So this year, we've opened only 5 schools. A year after, on the first day of school on September 4th, only 5 of our buildings were open, with the understanding that the remainder of the buildings will open on the 17th of September. Needless to say, that didn't happen. So today, as we speak, 5 additional schools were supposed to open today. I've understood that there are little glitches, but they did open. The last school, which is the junior high, who was the first impacted after last year's storms, is actually going to be the last to come online with what we call TDA, to be announced, because they have no definitive date as to when that school will open. We do have some challenges. We continue to have challenges. We have to acknowledge that we had challenges pre-Maria. But the concept right now is, after the storms of 2017, 1 year later, we're in the same conditions that we were in previously. Yes, the modular units are coming online, but the fact that they were not ready for the school year leads to the planning phase. Because we understand it does take time, and we do applaud those who worked diligently to try to move it quickly. But then to open school just to say that they're open makes no sense if the environment is not conducive to learning. And that's one of the things we have to work on. We've known for decades. I mean, throughout the history of public education, the teachers and the staff, they always do what is necessary to open the classroom and to provide the utmost in educational structure for our children. It is up to the government, the community, to make sure that those learning environments are conducive to learning, and that's what we're requesting. So we do have some challenges. Last year opened. The exigency of the storms required us to go in and do whatever was necessary to get a sense of normalcy. But 1 year later, that's problematic when the classrooms are not ready to receive our students. And so we are still fighting for those conditions. We're asking for maybe the red tape to be tailored some to make sure the delay is not as strong, because it affects us right now. But as nature's proven, it can happen anywhere to anyone. And the fact that our modular units were not released, or the funding for the units were not released until June of this year to be prepared for an August opening, problematic. That should have been done. Everything should have been in place so that by January, the wheels would be turning smoothly. So one of the things that we are asking the members of Congress to make sure that the FEMA rules are, we don't want anyone to bypass any of the rules, but make sure everything is in place so it's a smooth transition from recovery, response to recovery, and to making sure that everything is in place to prepare our children for learning. So again, we do thank you very much. We appreciate the opportunity to share our plight with Islands, and as Sister Thomas said, we have a lot of issues, and the issues are the same in St. Thomas as in St. Croix. We have problems with the classroom. We have problems with standing classrooms. Unfortunately for us, we have 6 schools that are supposed to have modular units, and only one of those schools have opened their modular units on the island of St. John. So I am the president of the St. Thomas St. John Federation of Teachers because our district is St. Thomas and St. John. And the only modular unit that has opened thus far in our district is St. John. And we are appreciative because the classrooms are wonderful. When they get placed and they open, everything is provided. But in the process, we still have students without classrooms. We have teachers in the standing classrooms that did not receive the adequate resources to begin the school year. So we're asking your assistance and the assistance of everyone on the Hill to make sure that our school system and all school systems impacted by disasters are taken into consideration when they're planning to do their repairs and response. Thank you very much for this time.
We're going to take any questions if there are questions that any of the reporters may have or others may have. I just have to say that, you know, the Virgin Islands has dealt with issues well before the storm. And it was part of the lack of funding of this Congress that caused our infrastructure to be so fragile by not being able to have the funding for deferred maintenance and others that have caused so much of our infrastructure, and particularly schools, to sustain immeasurable damage after the storms. You know, the fact that on St. John, we only had one public school that was an elementary and a junior high school to facilitate the young people over there. That school was completely destroyed in this hurricane. So now those young people on St. John are really compromised. People of the Virgin Islands are trying to do their best with what we have, but we not only need the proper facilities, but also the proper support. There has not been the level of after-school funding that much of the other states have received has been cut off from the Virgin Islands for those 3 to 5 hours, which are so critical in communities where families are working and where young people need additional support. Cuts that are this Congress is proposing to school lunch programs. That cannot be sustained in areas where, listen, this country started the school lunch program because we wanted stronger, smarter Americans. We saw the effects of our young people not having proper nutrition when we went to war. But we want to be innovative. We're in a war of ideas and we're in a war of innovation with the rest of the world. And if we cannot provide the basics for our future, God help us. Are there any questions?
I'll ask you just to kind of lay out the timeline for this. As after the House will be out, maybe even early next week. The political red tape, if you guys have all mentioned, how soon could the funding be approved, especially as we head into the election season?
Well, you know, Congress did a great job of providing sufficient funding for the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. They set aside funding even for loan money, for operating costs. They set aside a particular fund just to build resilience, but it is the administration which has created additional red tapes. They've created obstacles which were not the intent of Congress. We've had members that are both Republican and Democrat send letters to Treasury, to HUD, telling them that they need to expedite the process, that they are not in fact meeting the intent of Congress. And so what's going to happen? Congress will be out, but members are still working. And so I will be calling on my colleagues to make those critical phone calls. What's important about this forum is that it will give members of Congress on the record great testimony, as well as to be able to ask those who are on the ground, on the front lines with our young people, what they should be doing and what are the areas that we need the support in the most to be able to ensure that our young people can get back to school. Any other questions?
I just wanted to give me any kind of preview of what you might say in the hearings and the testimony.
Well, during the hearing, I'm going to echo some of the items that were touched on by Delegate Plaskett as well as Caldwell. All right, and the school lunch program is in jeopardy. There are a lot of schools that are whose cafeterias are not up and going. Freezers are not working. Okay, kettles in the cafeterias are not working. So food has to be transmitted from the storeroom. Each and every day, there's a trucking company that transport uncooked food. So I guess they prepare it quickly in the morning. I don't know how that is working out. But there's a lot of electrical problems in the cafeterias. The schools, again, they're leaking badly. So all that stuff, the resources we need to run our schools, the materials, equipment, they're sparse. Computers are in need. Teachers don't have desks. That will be in my statement. They lack in desks. Teachers don't have places to put the supplies. The very few that they're getting, they're on the floor. All right, and that's the reality in the Virgin Islands. They're getting sick. The buildings are mold infested, and people are getting sick.
And that's a good question. Thank you. What I wanted to say is basically the fact that we're being acknowledged in this way, because in the past, Irma hit us first in St. Thomas. St. Croix and Puerto Rico sent resources to assist us and even open their doors. But when Maria came, it impacted Puerto Rico to the point that there was no way for them to help us if they needed help themselves. So we're extremely appreciative of the assistance that was offered to Puerto Rico when we got the initial damage from Irma. But when Puerto Rico was impacted, the attention was taken away from the Virgin Islands. So failure to acknowledge us helps them to forget that we had damage. So those are some of the things that we have to make sure that the community and the world understands. We also suffered significant damage in the Virgin Islands, and right now we are trying to rebuild, and we need the resources to do that. So that's some of the things we're sharing with the community today, with the Congress, and for those who are listening and viewing, that failing to acknowledge us helps the world to forget us. So please remember that we need the resources. Thank you.
And I think we're talking about what's happened before the storm and after the storm, but this Congress is also going to have to acknowledge what is going to be the long-term impact on our young people from having to go through this for multiple years. What is the impact going to be on our intellectual capacity? We've had so many families that have the means that have that then remove their children from the system itself and are moving elsewhere. I'm concerned about the psychological effect, never mind just the intellectual effect. And will this Congress have the compassion that it should to be able to support that as well? To support the teachers. They feel the strain. Many of these teachers have homes that have no roofs. They have blue tarps on their home. They go in every day and try to provide a safe haven for young people. Parents are sending their children to school with uncertainty in their own homes and then having to come back. Where are children doing their homework? If their parents face compromises in their own home, or they're living with relatives in the Virgin Islands elsewhere. This is the reality that Congress must be aware of. We are Americans, and this should never occur in an American soil. This should not occur to Americans. So I'm hoping that people will come out and hear what not only the teachers on St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John are speaking about, but also our sister island of Puerto Rico will be there. I'm grateful to Bobby Scott for putting together this forum, the ranking member of the Education and Workforce Committee, and also to Nydia Velasquez, whose leadership and passion immediately after the storms has really been instrumental in Congress taking note of what's happening. So thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.